Back once again to offer you a behind the scenes recording of the Self-Employed Life podcast, where you get a chance to get a heads up on this content a good 6 to 8 weeks or so before it actually comes out as a podcast. You potentially could see some blunders and mistakes or anything else that happens, but it's all good stuff. And I'm thrilled to bring you today's conversation because I think it's an important one and one that you're going to find really valuable. So let's get ready to do this. Let's get real about mindfulness in business. It can be a buzzword and get tossed around a lot, but what does it really mean? We're going to bring mindfulness down to earth, discuss the benefits, and talk about how mindfulness is representative of a much broader paradigm shift in business that I will attest to is true. I'm excited to talk about that. Our guest, Eric Holsapple, has a PhD in economics, has been a real estate CEO and developer for nearly 40 years, lectured real estate at Colorado State University for 20 years, and practiced yoga and meditation for 30 years. He has a unique perspective on how merging business and mindfulness can be a catalyst in changing lives. Eric is the founder of Living in the Gap, and his popular workshops teach CEOs and professionals a different way to operate mindfully while improving the bottom line. His forthcoming new book will be entitled Profit with Presence, and that will be published in early 2023. Eric, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Jeffrey. Appreciate being here.
I'm really excited to have this conversation because I believe in mindfulness in business, but I don't know that there's been a lot of conversation around, like I said, bringing it down to earth and really identifying what it is. Because I can see mindful in business in almost two different categories, although I don't see it as an either or. On one hand, I see mindful in business, which I see most often with my community as self-employed business owners, as their personal development, right? Their mindfulness so that they can perform better, be at their best, and improve their businesses. But on the other hand, there is a movement in business to bring mindfulness as almost an operating system within the business.
Exactly.
LinkedIn, for example, has, and I don't know if they still do because I know he has since moved on, but they had somebody in charge whose title was the director of mindfulness and compassion at a company like LinkedIn, of all places. Yeah. I'm kind of curious what mindfulness in business means to you and what the point is that you're getting across.
Yeah, I would say it's multifaceted. I mean, the most simplest is focus. It gives us the ability to focus. But the applications can be so much broader. I mean, for instance, in our company, LC Real Estate Group, a number of years ago, we adapted the vision statement of mindfully creating community. And it's even mindfully, we go out and, everybody's serving on, we did this before, and then we came up with a vision, but everybody's serving on nonprofit boards and getting really involved in the community and really trying to make the community a better place, which does a couple of things. One, it makes the community a better place. And if a better community makes a better place to run your business, it gives the employees so much gratitude and purpose for what they do. And I think it changes your whole mindset. And additionally, it makes you people that people want to deal with. It makes you people that people want to call you when they need something because you make them feel better.
That's really a key point. I want to stay with that for a second because that's a very key point, particularly for business owners. The idea that your mindfulness, your presence, your state of being makes you somebody that people want to do business with. That's a very tangible outcome of the benefits of mindfulness.
And it makes you very aware that success is a mindset, not a destination. And just to make that point, I mean, you can have a lot of money and not be happy. And what's the purpose of all the hard work that we do in business and generating everything if it doesn't bring us happiness and joy and peace of mind? So, it's so many people feel like when I get there, then I will serve, then I will be grateful, then I will give back. My experience is typically we've been trained in society to just want more. When we make our goals, we pick the bigger house, the third car, a more dramatic vacation.
And usually I would say for most business owners, a little beforehand, right? Because we're used to stretching ourselves. I'm kind of curious about, I agree with, and I think something that business owners can think about also is that mindfulness can be a way of customer service, right? There's a way that you can
Totally.
be mindful in your customer service, but I want to focus a little bit on serving our audience of self-employed business owners that are
Yeah.
often businesses of one. Therefore, their mindfulness is probably a little bit more of a personal development practice.
Mm-hmm.
And whether that's, so one thing I want to talk about is meditation in and of itself. Is meditation the only source of mindfulness? And I ask this because in the work that I do with my students in Self-Employed Business Institute, we start off by daily habits. And of course, I want to support the idea that one of those daily habits be meditation because of
Yes.
all the benefits of focus and all the benefits of meditation. But I also feel a responsibility to open up the option to people that meditation does not have to mean sitting on a mat. And I'm just kind of curious from your perspective, is that the only way to gain mindfulness in your opinion? Or what are some of the other ways one can be, what other practices can one use to gain mindfulness other than meditation?
Yeah, and the other, I mean, there are some people that are just resistant to it. So, for instance, I'll start with a larger company first, which we're not a very big company, 25 or so employees. We brought mindfulness in, and then go into a self-employed or individual proprietorship. Um, is I usually say, well, the goal is not to have everybody meditate. I mean, if you have over half the people meditate, I think you gain the flavor and you gain the culture and those kind of things. But some people will be resistant to it. And I think it's self-defeating to say you must meditate to somebody. It really, that's not what mindfulness is. Mindfulness is about personal responsibility, personal growth, and those kind of things. So I find the most successful companies are the ones that provide the opportunities, the training, the time off, or whatever they need to do that, and the example that leaders set. So for individuals, I think number one is the commitment and attitude to be mindful. The acknowledgement and just looking for it. It can be walks. We encourage people to take a walk before lunch. Give them time off actually to take a walk around, just look at the trees and be. Because if we were more connected with nature, meditation would be less needed. It's more need. I mean, it's more needed because we're so disconnected to nature and so connected to technology, which is actually designed to steal our attention. I mean, we're good in business people. We're good. I mean, they've designed it to come in and steal our attention. So we got to have to demand that we're going to take it back. So I think it can be
walking
a walk.
and walking is an interesting example because I'm a huge walker. I mean, I walk hours a day and find it often my most productive times a day. But there is also walking meditation, which I have done and
Oh,
I actually have
totally.
found
Yeah.
really beneficial,
Me
right?
too.
Where you're walking a labyrinth and you're really
Totally.
meditating on heel to toe and heel, like walking meditation, particularly for, I think for a lot of entrepreneurs who tend to have a lot of energy and need to move, walking meditation. But again, there's that category of walking
Yeah.
meditation. But I also think just strolling as walking can
Totally.
also be a form of meditation or a precursor to a
So,
more structured walking meditation.
and when you're walking, then, I mean, don't take your cell phone. Leave your cell phone behind. And when you're looking at something, try to fill your mind with the tree, the stream, whatever, the park. Fill your mind with those things and really try to be intentional about I'm taking a mindful walk.
Right. Hear
I'm
the
clearing
birds,
out.
right?
I'm not here just to ruminate about my problems.
Yeah.
I'm here to shift gears. The other thing is I'd say is, I came to this through yoga. Yoga was the first thing I did, and I did yoga for probably 6 or 7 years before I really formally meditated. It made me very open to meditation because it changed my whole breathing patterns. And I call the body the first best refuge for the mind. If I can place my attention into my body, and that can be through walking, like the mindful meditation, or just strolling, I place my attention somewhere else, my mind calms down. It's just physiology, how it happens, So when I concentrate on my legs or my feet hitting the ground or something else, I can start to feel the mind slow down and more opportunities. I mean, one of the main benefits of mindfulness is to be more open to things.
Exactly.
It's closed.
When I teach daily habits as a setup for in the Business Institute, we start off by teaching daily habits because I'm setting them up for the abundance of business strategies they're going to get. And I refer to this daily habit, whether it be meditation or something else, as a clearing of the mind habit. Like you really need a daily habit of clearing the mind so that you can gain focus. And really what in my teachings, what I'm trying to do is to help people clear their mind and prepare themselves for the very next daily habit, which I refer to as the What's Going Right journal, right? Because I want them to clear their mind and then journal what's going right in their life. But I truly believe in whatever form it is, whether it's meditation, whether it's a stroll, whether it is woodworking. I know some people that get so focused when they're working with wood in their hands, whatever it is, right? Painting. What you just need a habit, I think, to head towards mindfulness. I believe you just need a habit of clearing the mind at some point.
And most people have one. They haven't recognized it as that, but most people have something that if it's fly fishing or if it's skiing or something, most people have something which they feel totally themselves and are totally immersed in the activity. So I usually teach us to find that activity and then try to bring that feeling into your rest of your life, and particularly what I work on is your work life. Work on things that make you have that same kind of flow in your work life.
I mean, a very odd benefit, if you will, of the pandemic was as soon as people shifted there. I've always been a little bit of a germaphobe. So when I saw the rest of the world shifting towards that, I would describe it as I kind of like the fact the world is in a state of walking meditation right now. Like suddenly they're paying attention to what they're putting their hands on, which they before didn't even notice. Suddenly people are feeling the texture of things that they probably didn't before because they were just so habitually touching it. So, because I've always had because I'm a bit of a germaphobe, I've always had a very high level of consciousness of what I touch. I don't touch railings on escalators because they never get cleaned. I don't touch, I have this pet peeve that when somebody sets a menu at a restaurant down on top of my plate, I make them replace the plate because I don't know where that menu's been. Right? And this was my behavior pre-pandemic. And I started seeing other people behave that way. And I thought there was a very positive outcome of seeing people's level of awareness be increased. So there are many ways you can go about your life being mindful.
We actually offered during the pandemic mindful hand washing. How do you really pay attention to cleaning each thumb, each finger, each knuckle, and place your attention in those as a mindful activity rather than just another distraction that you have to do for the day and get over with. Actually treat that as part of your meditation or your mindfulness practice.
So we know the benefits. Certainly one benefit of mindfulness is focus. I had said, point out, because I reinforce, because you said it so beautifully, which I had never looked at it that way, that one of the benefits of mindfulness is that you become somebody people want to do business with. Yeah. That's got a very tangible benefit. What are some other benefits that you have seen in your clients from mindfulness?
Well, when you said point of time to clear out the mind, I think the benefit is to start noticing what's been put in there. Culture has really turned us into a society of making things and consuming things. And in business, there's nothing, I mean, that's what we do. It's great. We like to make things, produce. I love business. But it's not a purpose for life, just to make and consume things. So to start recognizing what culture has put in there, our family has put in there. Most of the thoughts that are coming up, we have some 6,000 thoughts a day, are put in there by our schools, and our government has said, we need to produce, we need to get the GDP up, we need to do this, you need to go borrow money, you need to do these things. So to start taking that back, I think once we complete the clear out process and have a habit of clearing out, then we can start saying, what's my purpose? Because I think motivation and leadership come from purpose. So we can start mindfully, putting in and having a deep look inside, which many of us have never done. Have really had a look inside to say, okay, that's what my parents wanted me to do. That's what my family wants to do. Society wants me to do. But what do I want? What do I call success? Because society is going to tell us it's never enough. Once we have the four vacations, dream vacations, and the 3 houses, you need to donate a school to somebody. Society's never going to be done with us. So we have to claim that back for ourselves. And I think purpose is a huge piece of mindfulness that comes a little bit down the road once that clearing out process and starting to recognize a little disassociation between thoughts and who's evaluating the thoughts comes. But then purpose is just the hugest thing of motivation, of leadership. I believe leaderships come from, it isn't like a leader can give him any subject and he's going to be a leader. I think leader comes from, really being passionate about something. And
I think
people
what you
step
just
in that
yeah,
never dreamed would be a leader. They step up. Sorry, go ahead.
what you said a moment ago, I thought was really powerful, and I never thought about it that way. That I think a lot of people in looking for their purpose kind of put the horse before the cart before the horse. That there becomes this force in nature. Let me find my purpose. Where what you're saying, which I agree with, is that if you take some of the pressure off finding your purpose and you step into mindfulness, it's going to be easier for that
Yeah.
purpose, your purpose, to reveal itself. I think that's really well said. The other thing that came up, and again, never looked at it quite this way, is the difference between productivity and performance. And I think that's a distinction that mindfulness offers, that we do live in a society, and hey, we do it to ourselves, particularly us business owners.
Yeah.
We do it to ourselves better than anybody in pushing out our productivity, being efficient.
Mm-hmm.
What I think mindfulness offers is better performance. So what are your thoughts on the difference? You've said
Yeah.
a moment ago kind of the downside of productivity. So talk to us a little bit about performance and how mindfulness can actually increase our performance.
In mindfulness, we will get very lost in the process. We set goals. Business people have to have goals. You have to have objectives. You have to set goals. But the way I teach it is we train earlier. We have a regular period. Maybe it's weekly, maybe it's monthly, maybe it's daily, looking at that where we go. But the rest of the time, we delve into just being present and being mindful. And we work to train our non-conscious to really keep working on those goals, because our non-conscious is working 24/7. If you can get clear and set those out with your visions and your statements and whatnot, that this is where you want to go, your non-conscious will take you there. You can just be there present with the employees, with the customers, with what you're doing. And that's where the joy comes in. When you start just being present with other people, and actually ask them questions, actually care about them, and being of service, that's where I think things just blow up. They just explode. It changes the whole dynamic of your life. And it's not that we don't care about the goals that we set. We don't care about profitability. We're just saying they're there, but I can't be there in the end at the result and present in the moment at the same time. I don't have that. We aren't wired that way. We have maybe one, maybe two things that we can be conscious of. We can multitask, but it's non-conscious.
Yeah.
We're non-conscious almost everything when we do it.
Yeah, there's something I offer in my first book, Lingo, which I believe I refer to as a productivity tip. And now I want to go back and change it and call it performance tip. Because to work with the non-conscious, as you said, one of the things that I do, and I suggest to my clients, is I like to prepare for the next day, the day before. Like, I think sleeping is a huge segue, right? So sleeping in a way is like December 31st, where we have created this false division between one thing to the next. And I think a healthier way of being is to create a bridge between one thing to the next, whether it's one day to the next or 1 year to the next. So there's more continuity and flow. We don't have these socialized barriers, and sleep somehow feels like this barrier from one day to the next. Where what I like to do is take advantage of the non-conscious's ability to increase my performance. Where I like to, before I go to bed, the last thing I do is I actually take what I refer to as a light look at my calendar, right? Just setting myself up. Also, just, whatever solutions and problems I'm looking for, because there really is, and it has been proven by science, there is something to the old adage that to sleep on it, because it's the sleeping process that lets that non-conscious. And I just find that if I'm preparing mentally for the next day, the night before, I'm hitting the ground more prepared mentally for the next day, because my head's already there.
Momentum.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
And momentum is what improves performance more than it even increases production. Right.
And it's also what works against it. It's getting your momentum going in the right direction. Because if you have unhealthy habits and poor performance, that's a momentum too that you have to first break to change the momentum to success. So I love that. I love that idea.
I want to talk a little bit about present, because like mindfulness, it's a buzzword, but I wonder what people really think it means. And presence is one of those words. And I think
Yeah.
to tell people, particularly success-minded business owners, tell them, presence by definition in a lot of ways, or as I've heard it, to be present means not worrying about the past, not thinking about the future, which in and of itself seems absolutely contradictory to being an entrepreneur, because we're always evaluating the past
Yeah.
because we want to improve, and we're always looking to the future. So what does presence mean to you, and how is it applicable to the success-minded entrepreneur?
Well, we can be present even when we're evaluating the past, but it's a different mindset than being locked in the past. And we can be present when we're setting a vision for the future, but we can't be in that future while we're taking the activities needed to get there. So I believe mindfulness is a practice for us to be present. It's just hard. We've spent most of our life practicing not being present. From television to advertisements to now the advent of social media and all those things, everything is at us not to be present. So it really takes an intention to say, no, I'm going to turn this around. I'm going to be present. And it's even on my best days, though, and I've been at this a while, I come in and out of presence. So the practice is noticing when I'm present and noticing when I'm not. And then it's like meditation, we follow the breath or something like that. And we notice when we get distracted and we come back to the breath. Don't make ourselves wrong. Just keep coming back to being present. Or if we get tied up in the result, say, that's okay. I'm coming back to the present. I'm going to be with this person. I'm going to be with this, whatever email I'm doing or whatever I'm doing at the time, being present in that. So to me, presence is being focused on one thing that you're doing in the moment,
I think
being there.
Yeah, there's a lot of yes and in that, which the core principle of
Yes.
it's yes and that. One of the things one of your 12 pillars that stood out to me had something to do with non-attachment and not
Yeah.
holding on. That to me, and it's been a while, but at one point I remember I did a video or something and referred to this. This has been probably the greatest learning of my life as a mature individual, that the secret to life seemed to be, as I've learned it over the years, to be that entrepreneurial mindset, setting goals, but not being attached to the outcome. That to me is the best I've taken from the feeling of presence, is kind of like learning from the past, but not ruminating on the past, looking towards the future, but not being attached to the outcome. So this way it enables you to kind of bookend both sides and be present, because you can be fully present if you're taking actions for the future, but you're not attached to the outcome. Do you see a correlation there, especially it being one of your pillars? Is there a correlation there to presence and attachment?
Yeah, you can't be present and attached at the same time, because attachment brings you to the result. You have to be able to let go of that. And I think this is one of the benefits of learning meditation, is we learn not to be attached to our thoughts. Constantly, as a thought comes up, thinking mind, come back to the breath. The thought comes up, come back to the breath, let it go. We're learning to not be attached to the thoughts, but we can use that same training when we're out in our day, like we're with a customer and we want the sale, where our mind goes to, gosh, this is how much I'll make. Let it go. Come back to being present with the customer. Yeah. Constantly, because we're going to have it. That's going to come into our mind. We're human, but we can keep letting it go. We notice I'm not present. Well, I'm not present with Jeffrey right now. Let it go. Come back to the present moment. Just being that non-attachment is a practice. And it doesn't, what people get hung up with, I think they think that you don't care about it, but it's not that. We care about the results. And if the results aren't there over time, we'll change what we're doing. We're not going to keep doing something that's not successful. But the way to be hyper successful is to not be attached to the result, to know that we don't really control the ultimate result. We can control what we're doing in the moment, but we're not the greatest force in the universe. There are other forces that are bigger than us. But if we take what I think the best thing that goals do is it makes us take intentional actions. It makes us take the right kind of intentional positive actions. And when I take actions in the universe, positive things happen. And awareness means I'll notice if it isn't exactly what I wanted. It may be better than what I wanted. you know. But a lot of times we get so tied up and attached to the result, we don't see the real opportunity, which is a failed project leads me to an introduction to somebody that brings me 6 projects, that saw how I handled myself in a disappointment and was impressed with it and says, you know what? I'd like to work with this guy. Would
Yeah,
you come do these 3 things for me?
it's
Yeah.
interesting that I never looked at your definition or your the way you presented presence has a lot to do with one of the core principles of all my work, which I say all the time, is that we can't control the outcomes, but
Totally.
the only thing we can control, often in business and in life, is the environment for the results we want. Right? That's the presence part. Like at any
Totally.
moment in business, we need to be present to the environment that we're setting up, whether that is
It's
the
everything.
words you're using in copy or it's the business strategies you're applying. Like you can be fully present to the environment that you're creating, hoping for the results that you want, which I believe have a 90% likelihood of coming true if you set up the right
Yeah.
environment. But we can't be attached to the outcome because we really don't know. We really aren't in control.
And we won't be present if we are.
Correct.
Which will hurt our chances of actually achieving it.
Yeah.
Because people will smell that on you, that you're not, Yes.
Oh, 100%. I always say like my absolute, and I've learned that presence brings out your genius, whatever your genius is in your business. Presence brings out your genius. And I have learned, right. And I've actually never said that before because I never really looked at it, but I have, it's because
write it down because it's a good one. I love it.
It's the result of learning that when I impress myself as a coach, it's when I have been so present with my client. When I've gotten the best results from podcast interviews, it's because I've been so present with the guest. So at the end of the day, I've realized that my job every day is to be present. And when I'm present, I perform at my best. When I perform at my best, I get the best results for my clients, which leads to best results in business.
Touchdown. Right? That's totally.
So one of the things I'd said at the thing at the top, I said I was so excited to talk to you about. It actually took this right from your website, and you were so speaking my lingo when you said this. So this is copy right off your website. It says, our mission is to shift the old paradigm, which believes that stress and pressure are necessary to perform, and to prove that, in fact, you can be more creative and nimble when you operate from a grounded, mindful state. I want to talk to you about this paradigm shift. I have referred to it as the old business model and new business model. And you and I have been in business for about the same length of time, about 40 years. And there is an energetic paradigm shift in the world that has been taking place for a while, but I think that shift is picking up speed. There's an opportunity to be in business in a different way today than there was 20 years ago. And that way of being, like, one of the things I say in my book, The Self-Employed Life, is that we used to build businesses. Today, we create businesses. And what I see is the difference in that is what you're saying. Like, building is effort and stress and productivity. Creativity is coactive. Creativity is playing with the universe, playing with your clients, playing with the energy in the space. And what you create is far greater than anything you can build.
Yeah.
Talk to me more about that paradigm shift, because you're one of the few individuals I think that actually feels it or has said that they see it as much as I do.
It's magic. It's absolute magic. It's stress and those things in that world come from thoughts, thinking about things. Joy and success and satisfaction come in the gaps between it when we're actually present. So presence is what I get tied up in. Is people think, oh, I make this pile of money and then I'll be successful, happy, joyful. In my experience, and I got the pile of money and I was not, joyful and happy. I wasn't. I said, there's got to be a different way. I went back, got a doctor to try to get it. That didn't do it. I tried all kinds of things. Being present is what gave it to me. Gave me just the feeling of relaxing. And when you relax in the moment, you see things that you wouldn't see otherwise. You see opportunities. You know what to say, not by thinking about it, just by the space and the calmness that's there. You kind of know that, what the next move is intuitively. You tap into your whole body of intuition and experience, not just what I think that, instead of waiting, like me thinking here, what's the next thing to say to Jeff when he comes up saying, just listening to what you say and letting it come forth. It's night and day difference of being present, less stress. So I say when you notice yourself stressful, that's when you know you're in thought and time to back off, pause, and just let it go. Come back to the moment and say, what's the next right thing to do? What's the next right thing to do?
Representative of the paradigm shift. Years ago, I used to give the example because I think it was my first awareness of this paradigm shift in the world of doing business. That I used to say, because I, like you, have been in business for so many decades. In the 80s and 90s, when I was full time as a portrait photographer, in the 80s and 90s, people chose to hire you because you were considered to be the best in your field. Best at anything is subjective, but there is a very high motivation in the 80s and 90s to hire the best. Despite the fact that what I saw behind the scenes with many of the clients I worked with, that they hired the best designer, they hired the best in different categories. And that designer was driving them crazy because the designer was a complete, diva, male or female, to work with. And I would hear those stories, but they were the one to have. And I sometimes questioned whether I was hired for my skill set or whether I was hired because I had built a brand as being the photographer that affluent people should choose. That was the 80s and 90s. And I saw that shifting. And the energetic shift is today, and I say this often, is people don't hire you today because you're the best at what you do. They hire you because they feel like you get them and that they get you, right? They will, and I think anybody would agree, there are people I will not do business with, even though they're very good at what they do, because I just don't like them. I just don't feel like they get me or understand me, or the vibe is off. People make decisions on who they hire from an energetic perspective today more than they certainly did years ago.
Yeah.
Even if you're the best at your field, like if you're not likable,
Or
you may not get hired.
another take on that, and I am a real estate developer is what I, how I made my money and my business born, and it was trust. If people if the city and the banks and your partners and the tenants trusted you, they wanted to do business with you. But if you got in a situation, particularly when the economy's down, if people get so that they don't trust you, like you're going to possibly take advantage of them, they won't work with you either.
Yeah.
So right in that same world, likability, trust, keeping your word, is all in that.
I think that paradigm shift, like I said, that to me is a pretty literal example of the paradigm shift. And I think that paradigm shift over the last several years has expanded to even broader, which I define as the difference between building a business and creating a business. Like I think the big paradigm shift in business today is forcing stress, effort doesn't work in the long term, where listening, empathy, co-creating, that's how you create a successful business today. That to me is the broader paradigm shift that I want everybody to clue into, because your best way to be successful today as a business owner is like I said, listening, empathy, co-creation, and just being present.
What you said earlier about that somebody gets you, that's through listening.
Yeah.
That's the biggest gift you can give to somebody. And the nice thing about this part of the practice is, especially if you're willing to take it in your work, you practice on listening. It's the biggest gift, and that's how I say relationships are formed. Listening to somebody is how, that's when someone will call you. It's subconscious to them, but they're just going to call you because they know you'll listen and you'll get them. And then I say, we say is if you can learn something at work that you can bring home that makes your home life better. Now, how many spouses or kids would like to be listened to?
Yeah.
So when you get home, and we go to work so that we have a great home life, right? I mean, most of us. I mean, I love to work, but I want a good home life. So listening is huge.
Yeah. You do offer in your workshops and in your work, you have what you refer to as 12 pillars, which I would encourage people, they can actually find those on your website and check them out. And of course, it's part of your teachings. I want to kind of harken back to one of the core pillars that I love and have been talking about for a while. And I actually first heard this as a poem from the songwriter Margaret Smith, I think was her name. It's called Be Do Have. Yeah. And you've referenced it earlier in our conversation, but I think it's worth repeating, because in this poem, and I won't remember the exact words, but it's something like, it starts off as saying most people live their lives backwards. They try to have what they want, do what they need to do in order to be happy, where it actually works the other way around. It's actually be, do, have. So talk to us a little bit about what be, do, have has come to mean to you.
Well, it's really the whole conversation we've had up to this point is that success and happiness is a mindset, and that we have been trained in this society that if we do all the right things, we'll have, we'll get to have the houses, the spouses, the vacations, all that kind of stuff, and then someday get to be happy.
Yeah.
And I say it's a cultural lie, because I think what happens to us is we're so trained to just get things that when we get those, we just want more. I've had that experience myself and numerous friends. I just watch them. You had these things. Oh, I want to make six figures, and I want to do this. You get there, and they go, "Oh boy, but if I just had." Mm-hmm. So, be do have is saying it, and the other thing is that mindset of always longing and trying to achieve. It works against being present. We're working on not being present because we're tied up in that day when we get to be present. We're not present today. So it's turning it around is saying, put presence first. Success is a mindset. And if you can be happy now, then you have a better likelihood of getting those things. Because people, if you're not happy, you're unhappy. If you don't feel you're successful, you're unsuccessful. If you're not content, you're discontent. And people don't want to deal with people that are unhappy, unsuccessful, and discontent. They may, and transactionally you may get there. I'm not saying you won't, because there's all kinds of examples of successful people, and I was one of them.
What you just said is really key for our world of self-employed business owners is transactionally. It's true. Transactionally, in a transactional based business, you probably can be a little less likable and still make the transaction. The difference is when you're a self-employed business owner, and your business is not transactional. Your business is built on relationships. You're a relationship-based business. So when you're in a relationship-based business, your discontentment is going to come through. I actually, to be honest, I have never shared this before, that there was years ago as a photographer, there was a period of my life where a lot of things were going wrong. I think it was when I was going through a divorce, there was some family conflict, and I had wonderful clients that I had served for many, many years. So we did have a really good relationship. And one of those clients once looked at me. I was just doing business with her and I thought I was pulling it off. And she looked at me one day. She goes, "What is up with you? Because you're miserable." And to have a client say that to you, I really treasure the relationship you have with a client when she because I thought I was faking it. I thought I was pulling it off, but she could see my discontent. And I ended up opening up to her in a way that I normally wouldn't in a client, business owner client relationship. But when she called me out on it, I'm like, I happen to be going through a lot. I'm going through a divorce, family conflict. But I had no idea my discontent was showing up because I thought I was covering it up. But in fact, it was showing up.
I had a similar experience that was uncovered in a workshop versus from a client. I was the top guy, so people usually wouldn't share with me. But I was at a workshop, and even with others, and the guy came up to me one day and said, "What are you so angry about?" I said, "I'm not angry." It was just like, and I went to work on just awareness around being angry. I realized I was running my kids' businesses, closings, around people being angry at me. And once I got it, I said, "That's disgusting." Yeah. It was unconscious. I even found myself manufacturing anger to get my way as a negotiation, kind of subconsciously. And I started watching that and said, "God, that's not who I want to be. If I can't convince somebody logically that this is the way we should do something, it ain't worth it."
Yeah. So I'm imagining one of the questions that was on my mind, which I think I may be a little more closer to understanding the answer, but I was kind of curious as to why you named your company Living in the Gap. Because the gap often, seems, I don't want to say it seems like a negative, but for example, in my work, I'm always looking for the gap. I'm always looking for the gap between how people think they're coming across on their website and how they really want to come across on the website, which is why I help them with the brand messaging. Or I look for the gap in their business or their self-employed ecosystem where, what's the gap that's keeping the ecosystem of their business from really thriving. So I'm always looking for the gap as if it's a missing piece. And yet you named your business Living in the Gap, which sounds like that's a glorious place to be. So what are you referring to when you refer to the gap?
Well, and it's one problem with the name because people don't understand what the name is until they get into the work. So I don't know if I would name it that if I started again tomorrow. But I love the term because it's the gap when thought stops and the next before another thought starts. It's the gap in thinking. It's that spaciousness. It's that moment of joy and peace when, because joy and peace are not thoughts about things. They're just a moment of, or when you look at a beautiful piece of art and just, the mind stops and we have that gap that just fills us. Or you look at a dramatic view of the mountains and you go, oh, that's joy, that's peace. And what's happening is those things are slowing down the mind and they're creating a gap in thinking mind that reduces stress and promotes joy. So that's why. That's what it is.
And I will agree with you on that. And I will say that in my work of looking for the gap, because in a way, I'm looking for the gap as a problem that needs to be solved. But in the same way, that is where the joy is. Like where your life is going to change is when I'm able to work with you and identify the gap in your ecosystem, because that's when your life is going to change. So I agree with you. I think the end result of a gap is tremendous joy, whether it's a gasp because you're looking at something beautiful or a piece of art and it causes that moment of pause that puts you in this gap space, which is so beautiful. I think likewise, that as working with business owners, that if we can identify the gap that's keeping you from coming across for who you really are to your customers, if we can determine the gap that is blocking up your business, the unhealthy part of your ecosystem, that is the joy, because that's when your life can change. So I actually like your name. I'd say stick with it.
I'm going to, but thank you.
Well, Eric, I thank you for having this conversation about mindfulness. I said my goal here today was to kind of bring it down to earth, because mindfulness is a real practice in our businesses today, and one that can have very specific, tangible results. I love, and I'm just going to say it again, I love that you said that people are more eager to do business with people they like. You will be more likable, more content. You will exude better energy when you leverage the benefits of mindfulness. I think it's beautifully said. So thank you for having the conversation with us today. I want to end with one last question for you, which is, what's one thing about you that says everything about you?
Commitment.
How so?
I'm committed to my family. I'm committed to my partners at work. I'm committed to my customers, committed to my stakeholders. I'm committed to presence. I'm not perfect about mindfulness. I come in and out of it. I'm not perfect, but I'm committed to it. And I'm committed to making the world a better place before I leave it. It's given me tremendous life. And I think that's what makes capitalism work, is if we're willing to give back and make it a better place, out of our hearts. So I'm committed.
Beautiful. Love it. So Eric, tell us how we might find out more about your work, your workshops, and how to stay in touch with you.
Best is and I appreciate you going to the website and checking those things, Jeffrey. Livinginthegap.org. Livinginthegap, spelled out.org, has everything currently we're doing. We have a mindful leadership program kicking off August 2nd. I think we have one opening left in that for the next cohort. But we're going to have a series of other online things that we're doing. We're just right now in the middle of a 21-day mindfulness, 10 minutes a day. There'll be another one of those in September. Comes to your mailbox, 10 minutes a day. And the book launch, I've been working pretty hard on that. That'll be pre-sale in the fourth quarter of this year, and then available probably in March of 2023. So that'll be, you can take some of the work from our workshops, without having to attend.
Great. Well, we'll make sure we'll put those links in our show notes as well. And hey, I want to mention to you, at the point that this is broadcasting, we are just about to start the next cohort of the Self-Employed Business Institute, which I have referenced a couple times here today on the incredible tangible results we get from our students. And it truly is my greatest joy of what I get to do every day. So if you want to check that out, go to selfemployedbusinessinstitute.com. And as I always say about anything I offer, it's just an option. We should know our options in life. Take a look at it, see if it suits you, if it addresses the issues in your own self-employed ecosystem. And if we can find the gap for you that will change your life, that could have tremendous value for you. So I encourage you to check that out as well. Eric, thank you so much for being here. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. I really enjoyed it.
Awesome. And remember, you might be in business for yourself, but you are not in business by yourself. Be your best self, be proud, and keep changing the world.